It's time for another Buford Pusser, the other story, and today we've got something that's should be really interesting to most of us because I'm going to speak about half-baked authors, co-authors, podcasters, people that keep the Pusser legend alive by telling stories that aren't exactly true. And the problem is most of them know what they're saying is not true. So sit back and listen and see what you think when we're all finished here. Now, let's first address where all this got started, and it was with this book, The 12th of August by W.R. Morris. Now, in his defense, he was under contract when he wrote this book. However, he didn't do a lot of actual research, or he would have questioned a lot of things and probably worded things differently. I've been told that what I'm doing now is the book that he really wanted to write. But that being said, you'll find all sorts of things in this book from beginning to end that just aren't true. Now, while W.R. Morris got a lot of things right in his book, he got just as many things wrong. For instance, let's take as an example when he talked about Kenneth Wayne McCoy, a young sailor that was beaten to death by Louise Hathcock at the White Irish with a claw hammer. Didn't happen. Now, as you know, or may have known, I interviewed Kenneth Wayne McCoy's sons about their dad, and they assured me that not only did he survive that, but he served a couple of tours in Vietnam flying helicopters and A4s. Then, when he got out of the service, he returned to Pensacola, Florida, where he set up a business and died in November of 2012. Now, he outlived Louise, Towhead, Buford, everybody. But yet, this book tells you he was killed at the White Iris. Now, Morris would write about when Buford was beaten, cut up, robbed, thrown out of the plantation club, and left for dead. Now, his account of it has no backing. There's no police records that the event ever happened. There's no medical records to indicate that Buford was cut up like they said. And you would think if that had happened, somebody would have had a photo of Buford with those 192 stitches in his head and face that W.R. Morris claimed were there. After all, Adamsville was a very small town and, about 1,000 people. And someone being injured like that would have been the talk of the community. Now, for me personally, the real culprit that made Buford the hero that most people believe him to be today was the movie Walking Tall. Now, it was a fictional movie. It said so in the captions. It also stated that it was a fictional account based upon certain events in his life. Well, he was from McNairy County. He was elected sheriff, and his wife got killed. Other than that, similarities seem to cease there. Another falsehood that Morris would tell us was about how Buford took over for his dad as chief of police in Adamsville. Now, something that a lot of people don't understand is that Carl Pusser, when he was chief of police, was involved in an auto accident and messed up his hip. That was in 1957. Well, during that time, Buford had gone to the Marines. He had come back, worked at a local funeral home, then moved off to Chicago. And that when Buford and Pauline, the kids, moved back, Buford got a job as a patrolman in Adamsville. And when the current police chief, Buford Surratt, stepped down, Buford took over as chief. Now, I have to wonder why it was so important to Morris to write that Buford succeeded Carl Pusser as chief of police of Adamsville. Why not just tell the truth? Say that Carl retired in 1957, Buford came along in 1961, and got the job as chief then after Buford Surratt stepped down. Makes no sense. It's just another lie, another story, another hoax. Now, it wasn't just Morse that was out to confuse the gullible public and take advantage of them. For instance, Walking Tall, like I said, was a fictional movie. Well, they went on to do a trilogy about it. And the deeper that you got into the series, the more incredible it got that these things did not happen the way that they portrayed in the movies. Not only that, but you had people like this Ghost Tales of the State Line Mob. Now, the author was on a radio interview with Bill Way, and when he was asked about how that you know what these people were saying, because this book was written as if the author was there. And then he admitted that, well, I just kind of put down what I thought they might be discussing, but yet people believe this to be a true story. Then there's another book, also by the same author, and it is co-written by Ravonda Foster Kirby. And in it, for instance, they give a description of when the Vogels were robbed, which led to Louise Hathcock's death. On page 179, for instance, they solved the mystery for us because they said it was Howard Carroll that went into the Vogels' room and took all their belongings. Now, I don't know where they came up with this story, but yet we had a lot of people believe that to be true when it was absolutely has no backing. Beyond that, we had even Dewana Pusser told some things in her book that weren't true. For instance, we've discussed many times on here the story about Elvis being at the Pusser residence during the time of Buford's funeral and how he went into Dewana's room. But yet, there's no proof that he was ever there. As far as we can ascertain, he was in Las Vegas. He had 2 shows that day, and the flight logs of his plane show that neither one of those planes were in the air that day. So, you've got to take that as so much of a hoax, I guess. But at any rate, that's what I'm trying to say is everything we thought we knew about Buford Pusser seems to be wrong. Be sure and subscribe and hit that bell so that you'll get notifications of new videos when they're released. Now, another thing that I sometimes find to be amusing and other times find to be very frustrating are the people who do podcasting and the videographers out there that are putting up things on YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else, where that they're regurgitating all the junk they've heard about Buford. There are so many things to listen to where that they sing the praises of Buford in podcast, and so many videos that you can see where they do the same thing. And it gets to be ridiculous that everyone believes this story to be true. It's kind of like I always tell people, the best thing you can do when you're researching anything about Buford Pusser is to forget everything you think you know and start with a clean slate. Look for anything that will back up some of the claims that have been made about him. For instance, let's discuss the way he cleaned up the state line. None of these people can tell you a single place that he ever closed down, but yet he's credited with cleaning up the state line. And that is something that you have heard over and over and over again. And how he would fight fire with fire. What's that supposed to mean? When did he do that? It just doesn't make sense. If you want to learn the real story of Buford Pusser, you need to get my book, Buford Pusser, The Other Story. It is full of facts and information that you don't get anywhere else that I know of. It's the story as told by the people who live their own parts in the real tale. It's full of photographs, documents, lots of interesting things to see, and it pretty well outlines everything from Buford's birth up until the time of his death, and even after that, because the family became embroiled in a lot of lawsuits over his legacy. So, again, Buford Pusser, the other story, it's available at both Amazon.com and eBay. You know what I find to be almost hilarious with some of these podcasters and such are the things that they say about me when I'm trying to get the truth out. They will say that I don't back anything that I have to say, even though on my Facebook page and in my book, I've posted all sorts of information from the TBI, the FBI, photographs, documents, but that's not good enough for them. On the other hand, when I ask them to back something they say, they can't do it. These people will go cherry pick the good things that Buford did. Now, I'll agree, he did some good things. Uh, the main thing I credit him with is getting more people interested in a career in law enforcement than anybody else I can think of. And no one can take that away from him, nor should they try. However, he did a lot of bad things. And they don't want to talk about that part. It's kind of like a Wyatt Earp type story. Let's believe in the sheriff's side or Marshall's side of the Wyatt Earp story, but not talk about how that he was involved with gambling, having saloons, uh, dealing with prostitutes, whatever. But Buford's story is pretty much the same way. Everyone that you talk to down there that sold alcohol during that time, beer, uh, said that they had to make payoffs to Buford. Now, they were competitors. They were not a syndicate like Walking Tall made them out to be. So, you know, how is it so many of them tell a different story? When I interviewed Sheriff James Opal Gray, who came in as sheriff sometime after Buford, he said that he'd lived down there all of his life, and he never had any problem with the state line. Said it was a place if you didn't go there, they didn't come looking for you. So you've got to consider that. But to show you how some people will react when you try to tell the truth about Buford, I'll show you how that they will attack you. For instance, I recently was the guest on a podcast program that is well known. And I expressed honestly what I have learned about the Pusser story, the Pusser Legend, and more specifically, the death of Pauline Pusser. Well, we had another podcaster decide to send a letter to the podcaster that I was a guest on their show. And let me read it to you. The letter says, "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is," and I will not give the name because I don't want to give them any more attention than they deserve, "and I am a native of McNairy County, Tennessee, who resides in Baton Rouge, Louisiana area. I grew up listening to stories about our homegrown hero, Sheriff Buford Pusser, among other tales about my home. I am an attorney by training and have always been the family historian, community go-to person for anything that pertained to the McNairy County history. I have edited one and co-authored another book about the State Line Mob. When Sheriff Pusser's wife was exhumed last year, family and friends kept urging me to do more, and I started an extensive research and a YouTube channel. At the time, I learned about Mike Elam and the other story. I've been a fan of your podcast and absolutely love your work. The quality is well above the attention given to it. That is why I was appalled to see in a social media post that you have interviewed this fraud. He should not be allowed to call himself a researcher, much less an author. You demean the quality of your work, especially when there are those of us who actually are from McNairy County who conduct legitimate, fact based, document based research. He is a joke at best. I think you need to take a long look at some of the things that he has done, including making veiled threats toward myself and harassing the Pusser family for years. I beg you to consider what I have and others have to say. I've made this as brief as possible in hopes of reaching you before you give any more attention to this man. And then the person goes on to say that they'll make themselves available to calls, Zoom, or whatever they can do to communicate. And says that I am after my 15 minutes of fame. Now let's take a look at what this podcaster just did in trying to keep me from being on another podcaster's program. First of all, they tried to intimidate by saying they are trained as an attorney. Now, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, other than it sounds like they're trying to intimidate this other podcaster as well as myself. They also said that I am a fraud, I'm a joke, and I guess everybody has their opinion and they're entitled to one, however wrong it might be. Now, on top of this, they go on to say that I've made veiled threats and that this other podcaster should look into that. But yet they don't say anything about what these veiled threats were. I'd like to know. Next, they say I have harassed the Pusser family. I'm sorry, but if trying to get to the bottom of a story and find the facts and tell the truth about it is harassment, so be it. They also seem to indicate that they are self appointed as a historian and that their words are of great value because they are from the area. Now, I do happen to know this podcaster wasn't old enough to know Buford. So I don't know how that makes their word any more valid than that of anyone else's. They say that they've done database research. And what I would really like to know is that why it is that I can ask them questions about their own podcast regarding Buford and things that happened, and I never seem to get a straight answer. It's always got a curve or a twist to it. They can't just come out and say what they mean, probably because they know that it would be an error. But they didn't just stop there. There's even more. Now, I'm contacting a podcaster that I was dealing with and asking them not to have me on as a guest is basically what they were trying to accomplish. They go even further by making a really strange Facebook post. Let me read that one to you. All right, here we go. It says, my day job, one of them, is in the IT field. I am a senior AI consultant for a firm here in Louisiana. The other day, I decided I would ask an AI model why someone would do what Elam is doing. I gave the AI some background and some examples. I like this particular reason that it proposed: sensationalism. and engagement. Controversy and sensationalism often drive social media engagement. Discrediting a beloved figure like Pusser with shocking claims, even if sourced from criminals, can attract attention, clicks, and followers, which can be more lucrative or satisfying than maintaining a balanced or favorable perspective. I still maintain that he washed out from law enforcement and is looking for his last hurrah, which is very sad. The amount of time he has spent over the years and years on the same theories shows a level of mental instability. Nonetheless, trash sells. People always believe a lie over the truth, and he has proven again and again that he has no empathy for family and friends of Sheriff Pusser and the victims of the criminal element in the state line area. I very seriously question his veracity. He never backs up any of his claims. His theories violate every rule of logic. Wow. Now, first of all, I might mention that this person has gone from being a trained attorney to being an AI consultant. That's just one of their jobs. And that they don't like what I'm doing at all. So they ask an AI model to give some reason about why I would be doing what I'm doing. Well, my reason is I'm looking for the truth. But whenever they put this data in the computer, basically they're putting their own garbage in and expecting something other than garbage to come out. It's a computer. It does what you want it to do. And by putting garbage in, they get garbage out, so they're satisfied with what it tells them. As an AI consultant, I shouldn't have to explain this to them. Now, they also say that they doubt my veracity and that they are concerned about my mental instability. Now, they say I never back anything I have to say, but most of you know different. You've seen a lot of the documentation, you've seen the interviews. What have you seen from this person, if you know who they are? Like I said, I'm not going to give them the time of day or any attention by mentioning their name or what podcasts they do. If you figure it out, that's your business. But at any rate, these and others are the kind of attacks that you are subject to if you try to tell the truth about Buford Pusser. One other thing I might mention, they say that I have no empathy for Sheriff Pusser's family. That statement is so untrue. First of all, I have said many times that I felt sorry for Dewana. She lost her mom at an early age. She lost her dad at an early age. And the only thing that she knew about the legend really for herself was what her grandmother, who embezzled her trust fund, has told her. So, do I feel sorry for the family? Sure, I do. I mean, uh, Dewana was so stressed over things, she ended up committing suicide. Dewana was going through yet another divorce. She had moved out of her mini mansion into a double wide manufactured home. She had MS, and I understand that possibly through the divorce she was losing her health insurance. She had had a DUI, she had a couple of court dates, and she had a daughter that had cancer. And I empathized with that. What I don't understand is why I'm being judged for all this by this particular individual when they don't actually support the telling of the real story. They can't seem to bring themselves to do it. I started out as a huge Pusser fan. Everybody knows that. I wanted to learn more about him. And in the process, what I did was learn that he was not the person that I thought he was. And I do back what I have to say. Now, is it possible I've got some things wrong? Sure, everybody does. Nobody's perfect. But I make a very conscious effort to get things right, where some of these others just, as I said earlier, regurgitate things that they have heard. They do no research. A lot of the local historians are much the same way. They know that Buford's story is he told it, and Morse told it, others have told it, isn't true. But they're not going to level with you. They're not going to share any bad thing about Buford, which there is plenty to share. Uh, I don't know what to say about that. It's bizarre. Now, one thing I might say is all these people, the podcasters, the videographers, the authors, the historians, it's odd that they don't address why the TBI decided to exhume Pauline. That is not something that you take lightly, and I've stated that before. Now, I suspect I know the reasons they did. I know a lot of the stuff that they had because I was aware of it years ago. It just took a little while for word to get around about it. So ask yourself if the authors, co authors, podcasters, videographers, historians are correct. Why is the TBI looking into that story again? 57 years after Pauline's death. Yes, I'm calling the Pusser Legend a hoax, and I am not the first person to do so. Jerry Heacock did long ago. It was back in 1981 when he referred to it as a hoax. So, why people don't want to check out the things that he had to say? Yes, some of them were wrong, but a lot of them were right. And I think we've been able to verify that. And all these people that are saying it is not, why aren't they offering some proof of what they say? They cherry pick things that they want to use. They don't look into anything that is negative about Buford. So, you know, we're never going to be able to convince everybody, especially the Pusser fans, that much of this legend is a hoax. But, folks, it is. It's as simple as that. The truth is simply what it is. It has no agenda. And the people that are saying that I don't have a clue, that story's as old as politics itself. I mean, they are accusing me of doing the very things that they do. And like I say, if you want to learn the real story of Buford Pusser, just forget everything you think you know. Start with a clean slate and just look for the facts, regardless of what they are, and try to verify that information. That's all I've done. So there you have it. I think most people will agree when they do that the Pusser legend is nothing but a hoax. Most of that never happened. It was put in our brain by the movie Walking Tall, and then people jumped on that bandwagon and just rolled with it. And when you look at the Walking Tall version and you look at the real version, there are so few similarities that it's hilarious. But people have fallen for it. I was one of them. But, I woke up one day and put my law enforcement training to work and found out that the legend doesn't hold water. Well, I'll get off my soapbox and just say, see you in a couple of days. and we'll go from there. Until then, just remember, truth has no agenda. Thanks for watching.